Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. We are blessed to continue with our study of Surah Jathiah, inshallah. Allah bless us with good health, inshallah, and also good uh, mind and thoughts, inshallah. All right, let's start off the intentions for seeking knowledge and teaching. I intend to seek knowledge and to teach, to benefit myself and to benefit others, to remind myself and to remind others, to profit myself and to profit others, to usher adherence to the book of Allah and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to invite to guidance and to guide to that which is good, seeking the face of Allah, His pleasure, His closeness, and His reward, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's continue on with our Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم نور بالقرآن بصري واشرح به صدري وأطلق به لساني واستعمل به بدني وقوي به جناني وأسرع به فهمي بحولك وقوتك فإنه لا حول ولا قوة إلا بك يا أرحم الراحمين. والصلاة على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين بفضل سبحانك ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. All right, we did verses 11 to 15 in the last lesson. The Quran is the guidance. Those who disbelieve in the ayahs of their Rabb will have a painful punishment, which is foul. They had the word rijzi, right? Says this is foulness in the punishment in itself. It is painful and it's really foul. All right, Allah has made subservient to us the sea so that the ships may float by His command, and that we may seek His grace and may give thanks. So these are three things which Allah has mentioned here. It's talking about the sea, and on the sea ships float, right, and travel around on the sea, and all by His command. Without the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will not float. It will not move like this. It's not floating actually. They use the word run, float. What's the word? When you move across the sea, and that we may seek of His grace. So that is a reason for us also to get maybe to travel from one place to another, do businesses, make friends, get acquaintances, and also to seek of the things in the sea itself, the pearls and the fish and animals and such things. And may give thanks. So that's another thing. All this we need to give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we travel across the seas, right? And gain lots from this travel. We need to give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has made subservient to us whatsoever is in the heavens and the earth from Himself. So He Himself has done it. It's for us again thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's important. Whatever that subservient means, we can use them for our benefit. And we have done it. We have done a lot in using things from the heavens. And at one time, of course, it was just water. Yes, of course, we also use the heat of the sun in our. We learn things like greenhouse effects and things like that. We have been using the heat of the sun in many ways, the infrared radiation. And of course, nowadays we go on into the various electromagnetic rays, and we have done quite a lot in our transmission of, in our modern world of mass communication. A lot of the rays of the electromagnetic waves are being used right? So we don't realize that how much of it is being used, but all this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most surely there are signs for those who reflect. So there's a need to be to reflect and study the situations and realize that these are great signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah has created all this for us, right? It's to be used for our good on earth and also for the next world, inshallah. Rasulullah SAW was instructed to tell those who believe to forgive those who do not fear the days of Allah. He will recompense the people for what they earn. So here we have a situation we did explain quite extensively about what is happening here is that for us to just move on, let go, don't hold grudge against them, don't hate them, don't whatever. We might not be happy with the way they are praying to other gods, but just leave them alone and leave them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's no use fighting against them, having this anger, hatred, right, and contempt and such things. It's not going to help us in any way. We just move on. Right, of course, there were arguments about it, that this is only for the time when the Muslims were in bad shape in Mecca, last 3 years of Mecca, Rasulullah's stint in Mecca. But it is said it's for all situations depending on our state. So that was just an example in which we are being abused as Muslims in Mecca, they were being abused. And so just move on and just live your life and live everything else to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So of course in Medina things change, right? Rasulullah did go on expeditions, right, to stop oppression and things like that. But then again, we have to look at the situation before we move on to say that this is not has been abrogated as some scholars had decided. Or whoever does good, it is for his own soul, and whoever does evil, it is against himself. So that's the important thing, is that we need to do good for ourselves, right? If we care for ourselves, then we move to doing good, and if we do not, then we will have trouble by doing evil. All will be brought to your Rabb. So that is the reality. All of us will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually. Allah gave the book, the wisdom, and prophethood to the children of Israel. So they were given all this, and we discussed about the book, the wisdom, and the prophethood, right? And he gave them good news, good things, lots of good things, favored them above the worlds. All right, we did this, so we're not going to go through in depth. We'll just read through, and then we'll move on to the explanation. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحُكْمَ وَالنُّبُوَّةَ وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنْ طَيِّبَاتٍ وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. That's number 16, I see. We did that, but we didn't explain further. So Allah says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ كِتَابٍ إِلَى الْكِتَابِ. So Allah says, Allah gave the children of Israel the book, right? So now it is, Allah has mentioned of his good, of his, of the things that he has done for us, and that this is one of the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to give a book. And the book was entrusted to the people of Bani Israel, the children or the descendants of Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam. Of course, that comes from Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam further. But of course, Israel was the other name of Yaqub. Israel, he's called Israel, according to some narrations, from the word Isra, because we now have Isra Mi'raj, right? Isra means travel by night. He likes to be up and about at night doing lots of ibadah. And he was given the title Israel. All right, by the time of the revelation of this surah, the Jews of Arabia had started supporting and collaborating with the pagans of Mecca. All right, so we do understand that what's happening here. Let's look at history a little bit. Rasulullah has been preaching Islam for the past 10, 11 years, right? So by this time, Islam, this work of Rasulullah has been brought far and wide. We also saw the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placing Rasulullah in Mecca, because Mecca is a center of pilgrimage, which means people from all over Arabia, the Arabs, right, comes over to Mecca to do their pilgrimage. And they got news of this prophet, right, who is preaching a religion, a new religion where they are concerned. But for some of them who are Hanifs, right? They didn't see it as a new religion because it is a religion of turning to one God. All right. So the Jews, as we know, they are in Medina, right? Most of them are in Medina. There are some of them outside Medina, but they are mainly in Medina, the few tribes of Jews in Medina. And they are there because they believe that they are aware from their books that there is a prophet come. The last prophet is going to be in Medina. So they were hoping that one of their children, ancestors would be, one of their descendants would be a prophet, the prophet, right? So when they heard of this prophet, so of course the people of Medina and Mecca, they do have, they do make travels quite often, businesses and things like that. And we know that Medina is an agricultural place, so which means the people of Mecca would need to go to Medina to get certain food supplies and things like that. Because there are other parts of Arabia also giving food supplies and things like that. But anyway, they have communication, and the Jews have heard of this prophet, and they don't quite like it because he is Arab, right? So they are against the prophet. They want to get rid of the prophet, just as they tried to get rid of Isa alayhi salam. Although Isa alayhi salam was of um, their tribe, right? The Bani Israel was the Bani Israel. They weren't happy with the things that he brought because he wanted to change their ways to become more spiritual. They didn't really quite like to be spiritual. All right, so let's continue. So Allah reminds the Jews of their real role and mission and commonality of their original mission with the mission of the Prophet ﷺ. So here Allah has started to engage the Jews. We saw this engagement earlier also in Surah Bani Israel, which is Surah Al-Isra. That also tells us that they have been quite bad, and Allah is now looking at them for their role here. So they are reminded here, walaqad, and surely atayna, we are the one who gave them. So here we is understood by all to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Give to who? Bani Israel, the book. So they have the book, right? The book, they have the book, and the Prophet sallallahu is also here has the book, and it's already about 63 surahs coming down, lots to ponder over if the Israel are willing to accept Rasulullah as a prophet of Allah. Allah gave them the book which provided the guidance and details of the Islamic lifestyle of slavish obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that results in justice and excellence in the human society. So we do understand this book that is sent down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Israelites helps them, guides them to how to live life, and how to is all in detail how to interact with human beings, how to interact with parents, the sins, the wrongs that shouldn't be committed, how to live life and things like that. And of course, how to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only confined to praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But of course, obeying all injunctions that are made in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the book, in the Surah Isra, we saw that the 10 commandments of the Israelites, or given to the Israelites, were present in the Surah Isra, Surah Bani Israel, and they called Bani Israel because it has a lot to do with the people of Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam. So basically, there should be justice and excellence. Excellence, of course, in moral character, in akhlaq, right, of the people who are abiding to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before the advent of Islam, the leadership of mankind was assigned to the children of Israel. So that is before Islam, they were given to lead the people, of course, to lead them to lead us, to lead everyone, not only the Bani Israel, to lead them in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they're supposed to guide people to what they have been guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were the community entrusted with the divine faith Allah laid down for a certain period of time. So we know it's from Nabi Musa right until Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are those, of course, among the Bani Israel who really adhere to the teachings of Taurat, right, and they do not get involved with other books that other sections of the Israelites has formulated themselves, right, to contradict what is in the Torah and another book called the Talmud, if I'm not wrong, right, and that is lots of magic inside and things like that, which are against the book Torah of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. Mankind needs a leadership enlightened with divine guidance. So there is a need for people to be enlightened with divine guidance, because with that they will not be corrupted, right? To formulate their own rules and regulations, which usually would serve their carnal interests. So the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there for justice for all, and also to bring them close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is necessary in living life as slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When human leadership is based on earthly considerations alone, with no reference to divine guidance, it is pulled in different directions, whether by desire, ignorance, or commonplace failing. So this is what happens to human beings when they have no guidance, right? They will be guided by either their desire or by their ignorance, not knowing a lot of things and yet wanting to do a lot of things and end up doing things wrong. And then, of course, their own misgivings, their own misjudgment. This is all this commonplace failings, things which go wrong because of their own understanding of things. Because human beings cannot perceive everything. Their perception is rather limited. And so they need divine guidance to help them through understanding a lot more about the reality of the world and the next world. Allah alone, the creator of mankind, is the one who gives people a law that is free from the pressure of desire, ignorance, or failing. So that is what it is. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who gives us. He knows, because He is our creator, right? If once we believe that He is our creator, we would believe that whatever He gives us is for our own good, right? Being the creator, He knows what is good and what's bad for us. And so we should trust Him and live life according to the laws set up by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and believe that by following Him, by adhering to the laws of Allah, we would have a good life in this world and in the next world. He is the one who knows best what suits His creation. Well, hukum. So you've got the book. He gives them the book, and He gives them the wisdom, the hukum. There's a few meanings to the hukum here. Hukum, judgment, implies three things. One, knowledge and understanding of the book and religion. So once you know and you understand, not only knowing, but you need to understand it, to apply the book, and then you would have the ability to make judgment because you know and understand the book and the religion in itself. Second, wisdom, to act according to the intention of the book. So that is wisdom, to act according to the intention of the book. All right. What is the intention of the book? What is the book created for? What is in the book? And how we should implement whatever Allah wants us to implement in the book. And finally, capability to give right decisions in disputes. So knowledge is important, intention is important, understanding is important, action is important. Then comes actions and right decisions in disputes. So that is under hukum. So this is hukum, arises from the book itself. They were also given ruling power and kings to be able to enforce and establish Islam completely and to make it the prevailing system of life without making any compromises. So they had, through their history, they had kings, right, to give judgment. They had in some of them ruling certain parts of Palestine when they went back to Palestine. So we are aware that Nabi Musa salam brought them from Egypt to Palestine. Right, in Egypt they were not kings and ruling power, and they were actually slaves. But Nabi Musa salam raised their status with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then brought them back to Palestine, where after he has passed on, right, they actually gained control of parts of Palestine. Initially, we saw the story of with Nabi Musa when he asked them to enter a town, they refused, right, because they felt that they are not able to confront the king down there, and they were very arrogant and very rude. In fact, right, they asked Nabi Musa and his God to go and fight and enter the house, enter the village, sorry, the town. All right, contextual indications show that the word hukum refers to the kingdom, which was acquired by the Israelites in the times of Dawood and Sulaiman, and which continued to exist for a long period. All right, they had, although during Dawood's time, they had this Goliath, right? You have this Jalut, they call it Jalut. All right, and the prophet at that time, before Dawood, there was another prophet, but he was not one of those named in the Quran, right? According to some, is Samuel. But anyway, he was the people of Bani Israel asked him to appoint a king for them, right? So the prophet was asked to appoint a king, and he appointed Talut. And the people of Bani Israel were not happy with Talut because Talut was from an inferior tribe. They got 12 tribes, and some of the tribes have got high class, high status, right? But some of them. So they were very upset that he was chosen because he was not rich and not powerful, and such things like that. But Allah has his reasons for choosing Talut. Allah mentioned that he has wise wisdom and he is strong, right? All right, and then David became king. So the kingdom started from Talut. Could be before that also, because according to the history of Israelites, when Jalut came in, Jalut is Goliath. Goliath conquered them parts of Palestine, right? Because the people of Bani Israel were into disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, were very aggressive, were very corrupt, very evil. So Allah puts a more evil creature over them, right, to destroy them. That's the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyway, so we've got Sulaiman and Dawood, the relationship to the book. Of course, we have here when Nabi Dawood alayhi salam and Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam was the king, they established the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But since later on, the other kings, we saw there was a king also during the time of Nabi Yahya alayhi salam, right? So somehow, although they were under the Romans, we do understand they were under the Romans at that time because we had stories of the Romans trying to kill Nabi Isa alayhi salam after much instigation from the Israelites themselves. So it's the Romans were ruling, but the Romans somehow allowed them to have their own kings, because we know that during the time of Nabi Yahya alayhi salam, Nabi Yahya actually was against the king at that time who wanted to marry his niece, and that was against the law of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. So we do understand the king was from the Bani Israel, and he was a king, and his niece also, and they wanted to go against, they wanted to get married, and Nabi Yahya objected to it, and Nabi Yahya was killed. He was beheaded because of his objection to their marriage. So they were kings along the way, right? But the two main famous kings that we are aware of is, we know of the Quran is Nabi Dawud alayhi salam and Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. So the relation between the book and the political authority is that one necessitates the other. So with political authority, right, the book could be implemented in that sense. The book of Allah is a collection of all his directives and laws. For this reason, the nation to whom Allah bestows the scripture of law and injunction is necessarily bestowed with political authority by him, because this is necessary for the implementation of the laws. And so that's why in Islam also, as we saw Rasulullah SAW, of course, 13 years in Medina, there was no rule, nothing. But when he moved to Mecca, 13 years in Mecca, there was no rules. He was just building the faith of the people. Then when he moved to Medina, then we have the Islamic State. And from there, right, we established the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? We've spread Islam. Rasulullah did a number of things to spread the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they have political authority in some sense, because this is necessary in the implementation of the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such nations are deprived of political authority when they show indifference to the directives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, people would argue against this statement that there's a lot of political authority out there that are not in line with the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yeah, these are people out there. They are trials for us. They are trials because they are out there trying to go against some of the directives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and implement their own directives, which, as we see, would be according to their own desires, their own misgivings, and their own ignorance. One nubuwah, so they were given hukum. So that's the opinion. Hukum is not wisdom, but justice, judgment, good judgment. One nubuwah. Nubuwah is nabi, from the word nabi. So that's prophethood. Lots of prophets among the Bani Israel. The meaning of the word an-nubuwah is very evident. Right? However, here it is mentioned for a specific purpose. After Musa alayhi salam, a whole series of prophets were consecutively sent among the Israelites, with Isa alayhi salam being the last in the line. There were a number, right? Those that we know are those mentioned in the Quran, but besides that, there are a lot more prophets, right, among the children of Israel. And of course, as we are aware, these prophets are sent down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to revive the teachings of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. Now, of course, Dawood along the way had his own book, but this book is more, from what we understand, more of hymn songs to aggrandize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like zikrs, which he sings with the animals and with the mountains around, right? So that was to develop that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, in the zikrs that he made. Beautiful his voice was, we were told in the Quran. And of course, Isa came also with Injil, right? Injil does not contradict the Torah. In fact, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, as we know in the Quran, Allah tells us he learned the Torah. It was necessary for him to learn the Torah because that was the book of Musa alayhi salam. It is just that Allah sent Isa alayhi salam to develop the spirituality of the Jews, to change them. It's high time that mankind move on to a different level of beautiful character, right? As we see in the rule of Taurat. Of course, you might say that it is contradicting. No, it's not really contradicting, but it is changing mindsets. Right? It's a bit different, right? In the book of Taurat, it says an eye for an eye and a nose for a nose, whatever, right? But in the supposedly in the Christian dogma, we've got if people slap you on the right, give them the left cheek, kind of thing, right? So there's forgiving and there's no confrontations. But in Islam, right, we had Allah perfected the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are allowed to retaliate, but the retaliation must be exactly the way they attack us. And if it's more than that, it's sinful. So to be careful, and then we are advised to forgive and move on, right? So this is change, right, in how human beings believe. All right, so the Israelites were condemned for the attitude they adopted with Isa alayhi salam, and then were deprived forever of both political power and prophethood. So he was the last of the prophets of the Bani Israel, as mentioned, right? The prophets of the Israelites. So the ulama of Islam, of the ummah of Rasulullah sallam, the ulama of the ummah of Rasulullah sallam, has the same role, plays the same role as the prophets of Bani Israel, because the prophets of Bani Israel, as mentioned, revive the teachings of Musa alayhi salam. Similarly, the ulama of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam revive the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah has said that in every century there will be a mujaddid. A mujaddid is a reviver of religion, and we've seen that those in with Imam Ghazali, Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani, and we've got Ibn Taymiyyah. All these are present at the beginning of the Islamic calendar. All right, so, and they do revive the religion. Sometimes the religion goes down so badly among the Muslims, right? Sects and segregations and influenced by cultures that they lived with and things like that. So Allah has appointed people to revive the religion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So to protect their kings from the influences and incitements of shaitan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made sure that there was always one of his prophets in their midst to ensure that they do not deviate from the Islamic path by compromising its principles and values or adopting heresies. So we saw that in the story of Dawood, in the story of Thalut, right, where Thalut was appointed king by a prophet. So there were prophets along the way. Not all prophets were kings, right? Except for whom we know was Nabi Sulaiman and Nabi Dawud alayhi salam. They were prophets who were kings. Some say Nabi Ayub was also a king. Wallahu alam bisawab. All right. Anyway. وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنْ طَيِّبَاتٍ, and Allah blessed them with lots of rizki. We gave them rizki, Allah says. وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ, we gave them rizki, all the good things. They have lots and lots and lots of good things from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah blessed them with lots of good sustenance. Of course, good sustenance, we need to open up ourselves more that rizki does not only mean food or drink or money alone. Rizki is knowledge, understanding, happiness of mind. Rasulullah has taught us to ask for afiyah. Afiyah is well-being, and well-being is a rizki. Friendship, all these are rizki. Good neighbors and good government, all these, because rizki means anything that sustains you. So there's lots of good things that sustains you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنْ طَيِّبَاتٍ, طيبات, lots and lots of good things. They even had food and drinks from heaven. I mean, that is special for them. They had manna and salwa. While they were in the desert with Nabi Musa alayhi salam, there was a cloud following them in the daytime, and at night there was a light column to guide them. So these are really amazing things that they had, and this is in their history, and they know what Allah has blessed them with, lots and lots of good things. The words وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنْ طَيِّبَاتٍ refer to the abundance in sustenance, means of livelihood, as well as the favors and affluence given to the Israelites. And we saw also another part of the Quran which Allah mentioned how they became rich, they became powerful, and then they started to violate laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and become ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and did not use his favors to be a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This began with the occupation of the land of Palestine and reached its climax in the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam. All right, so that was the good things that they had. Of course, we had further. If you look at the history of Israelites, problem with that, the history of Israelites is tainted with all kinds of nonsensical stories, which we can't really accept. وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ, and we preferred them above the worlds. They were preferred. فَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. And what is this preference that Allah has given them? They were given the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the special guidance that will create them to the best of people. As we are aware, the Jews and the Bani Israel, they are very intelligent people. But Allah has said they have humiliated themselves when they are not able to use their intelligence, right, to be true slaves of Allah. Instead, they actually allow their base desires to get the better of the intellect. And that is a real humiliation to any human being, is to be controlled by their base desires instead of being able to move in life with the use of intellect, which is directed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is, they were favored. This way, they were preferred over all other nations for a very noble mission. And despite all essential components being in place to ensure that they stay on the right path, they still deviated from it. So we saw how they deviated. They come up with all kinds of rulings, all kinds of ideas in the Surah Al-Baqarah later on. Of course, this is in Mecca still. We are still in Mecca, 11th year in Mecca. When we go on to Medina, Allah expose the reality of the Bani Israel and how they change all kinds of things. They disguise the words of Allah. They hide the words of Allah, right? And they put things and they even created their own book, right? So as to object against the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This favor mentioned is an essential outcome of a nation being blessed with a divine book. This book is a light of guidance for the masses. So it's not only for the Jews, but for all of the Bani Israel, for all of mankind. They are supposed to bring this book to all of mankind. They being leaders in establishing the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they failed in fact very, very badly. And the Almighty hands over this light to a nation, and this means that He has chosen that nation to guide His creation. Indeed, this favor is huge. However, at the same time, this favor is dependent on certain conditions. As long as a nation continues to discharge this obligation of guiding people, it is blessed with this favor. When it forgoes this obligation, it is deprived of this favor. So that's what happened to them, right? They lost it. They lost that favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ wa is an atayna, we gave them, bayinat, this is plural, clear proofs, bayan, bayinat, all right, clear proofs, minal amr, of the matter. وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ bayinatim minal amr. فَمَا اخْتَلَفُوا إِلَّا fa is then, ma here is not, and not they differed. Khilaf here is ikhtilaf, is to differ. Wa alif they, so this is fi'il madi. Wa makhtalafu illa, except min ba'di, from after. All right, min ba'di. Some translators put it as after, but min ba'di has a longer sense to it, a more bigger time frame. Ma ja'ahum, what came to them, from after what came to them. So we can see ma can be not and can be what. Here is what. Ja'a is plural, past tense. Ja'a, we can see the ilm is the one that is ja'a. That means the ilm is in rafa state. So the knowledge came to them. It came to them, the knowledge. So the knowledge was the one that came to them. Baghyan, envy, full of envious. Bainahum, between them. Bainahum, this is a word which we are quite familiar with, between them. وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ بَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْرِ فَمَا اخْتَلَفُوا إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ. إِنَّ رَبَّكَ, surely your Rabb, yaqadi, from the word qada is to decree. Yaqdi, he decrees, this is al-mudari. Bainahum, between them. Yawm al-qiyamah, the day of resurrection. Yawma, right, this is an off structure, we can see, because yawma doesn't have a tanween, and qiyamah is in its jar state. So the day of resurrection, the of the al can be placed at the yawm to translate. In translation, understood? It's understood. Yawm al-qiyamah, fima, in what? Fi is in, ma is what? Kanu, they were, fihi, in it, yakhtalifun, differing. Actually, they were differing in what they were in it, differing. They differ. We can continue because the word is here, so it's a continuous tense here. We can actually translate this as differing in what they were in it. So the it is inserted, right? Although it was they were differing. And we gave them clear arguments in the affair, but it did not differ until after knowledge had come to them out of envy among themselves. Surely your Rabb will judge within them on the day of resurrection concerning what that wherein they differ. So atainahum bayinatim min al-amr. So it was very clear. Allah says we gave it to them, right? Clear ones. So bayinat is fi'al, it's a fi'al, and it is in its nasab state. Both nasab and jar, right, for ism, for plural alif ta, has a kasratain here in this case, it's a kasratain. But when it is a rafa, it has to be a dhammatain. وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ بَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْرِ. So what is the affair? It's the affair of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has made very, very clear to them. Allah gave it to them personally. The word Amr here refers to the Shari'ah and religion. The verse says that Allah, moreover, if you translate as matter, you don't know what's the meaning of the matter here, but the matter is the religion, right? The affair of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The verse says that Allah, moreover, blessed them with directives of the Sharia in a clear, certain, unequivocal manner, so that there is no possibility that they differ with one another or try to escape from these directives. So it's very clear, right? Everybody knows exactly what's supposed to be done, how it's supposed to be done. They have their salat. Salat has always been there with all the prophets. They ruku and sujud. But somehow along the way, they just get too lazy to do that. Maybe the shaitan comes in, obviously blaming the shaitan. It's like nowadays we do have lots of Muslims out there who start praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they say they claim to be Muslims, but they don't want to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That kind of salat was always there. We have seen that in the Jewish salat, that they have ruku and sujud. Although some say that when the Jews are concerned, they're supposed to sujud first because of their arrogance. Wallahu alam bisawab. Sujud first and then they ruku. For us, we ruku first and then we sujud, right? And if you look at our salat, it's really amazing how we get to learn to be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's no way they can differ or escape from the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What they were given of the divine law was clear and decisive, free of ambiguity, confusion, and contradiction. Allah gave them evidences, proofs, and unequivocal signs. Therefore, the proof hasn't been established against them. That means there's no way they can reject the truth that comes to them, that had come to them. And among the privileges bestowed upon the children of Israel by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was that he made the affairs of this world and the world to come manifest to them. So it's clear for them how they are to manage the world so that they have a good time in the next world. Allah bestowed them the knowledge to be aware of the proper management of this worldly and other worldly life. So this is the knowledge taught in their books, which we see, of course, in the book of Allah, in the Quran, from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some exegetes have said that by evident proofs, certain indications in the Torah as to the Prophet of Islam are being meant. So of course, some other Mufassirin says this bayinat actually refers specifically to the proofs of the advent of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why the rabbis, they are aware, they knew that the Prophet is going to be in Medina. They knew the night when the Prophet was born, and we've got incidences, but not only the rabbis, but some of the Jews actually could recognize Rasulullah's father Abdullah as carrying the light of the nur of the last prophet. And as mentioned, and as we know, we have the story of Salman al-Farsi, who worked with about 4 or 5 nuns, priests, and they told him exactly how the Prophet is going to look like. They told him exactly where the Prophet is going to be. And when he eventually ended up in Medina, he was overjoyed because that was what he was searching for. He was searching for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he knew the only way to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through the Prophet who was supposed to be coming soon. So they knew a lot about the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they hid it in their books actually. فَمَا اخْتَلَفُوا إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُم. So this is the reality of this Bani Israel. Allah says, and not they differed except, right? Ma فَمَا اخْتَلَفُوا إِلَّا. So ma and illa. Ma is a strong negation. La is not a very strong negation as ma. Ma is definitely no way, right? So and not they differ. So the only reason that they differed is that they start to differ when the truth came. They saw the truth, they don't want to accept the truth. The truth was just so difficult for them, right? Because as they say, they don't like Nabi. They don't like Malaikat Jibril alayhi salam, because Malaikat Jibril brings rulings which are difficult for them to follow. And they saw Malaikat Jibril as being vindictive, because Malaikat Jibril is always finding faults with them. Or not finding faults, making life difficult for them because they don't like to follow the rules laid down or brought down by Malaikat Jibril alayhi salam. And that was one of the reasons why they didn't want to accept Rasulullah, because Rasulullah received message from Malaikat Jibril. And Allah, the knowledge was there, they knew, but Allah says they differed not because the knowledge is there, because of the knowledge, they don't understand, but because of envy between themselves. So envies, and they are very envious of each other, and they find ways and means to destroy each other. So they're not gonna. Of course, here is envy to Rasulullah SAW, being an Arab. However, in spite of this elaborate arrangement, they differed with one another, and this difference did not arise because there was a genuine reason for it. So it's not a difference because of thinking, because of presenting the issue, whatever, and differences of opinions. No, it's just out of envy. On the contrary, in spite of the presence of divine revelations, this difference arose in obduracy and malice for one another. Just hate each other. They are jealous of each other. They stubbornly adhered to what they wanted. The result was that they were finally deprived of the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such disputes were motivated by mutual envy, malice, and injustice, despite their knowing the truth. So knowing the truth is not a foolproof of people following the truth, right? Because people are always subjected to their desires and their emotions, which can get the better of them and cause them to destroy themselves in many ways. Therefore, their leadership of mankind was terminated. They were not able, they do not hold that kind of great caliber. They do not have that kind of akhlaq to be known or to be given the role of leader for mankind. Allah Almighty has given an ultimatum to people to the effect that the worst disbelief is to differ in matters of truth. This truth has came to them, but they are not going to accept it. Even though Allah granted them superiority over enemies, instead of being thankful, they differed. Despite having clear teachings and commandments, they disputed and differed in the very basic matters of religion. First of all, they abandoned the very mission for which they were chosen, giving ruling status and blessed with the books and prophets. While they abdicated their duty of establishing deen, they adopted racism under the pretext of being the chosen people. So we do know that among the Jews that the religion is not supposed to be, they do not propagate their religion, right? It's supposed to be theirs, especially theirs, and not for anyone else, right? They are special people. They are given this special book, and no one else can become part of their religion. Unlike the Christians, where they promote their religion quite well, quite a lot. In fact, the missionary works are quite powerful, right, among the Christians. So that's racism. Similarly, the concept of justice and excellence became foreign to them. Rather, laws and regulations were introduced whereby they were not required to perform justice between the Jews and the Gentiles. So they came up with their own rulings where they are allowed to be unjust to other than the Jews and the Gentiles. So either you are Jews or not Jews. So if you're not Jews, they've got a certain set of rulings that they can impose on the non-Jews. They can kill them, and they doesn't have to be responsible for their killings. And we Muslims also should not get into that state. Some Muslims, they say, oh, it's okay to cheat non-Muslims. No, we don't. It's okay to lie because they are non-Muslims. It's okay to attack them because it's non-Muslim. I've heard this as I was growing up, and it's really ridiculous that as Muslims we would lie and cheat, and just because we are working with non-Muslims, whereas we are supposed to have a great character, great akhlaq, and through our akhlaq, it is how Islam was propagated, right? Because in the initial stages of the propagation of Islam, it was the Quran that entices people and caused them to realize the greatness of the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because these people understood Arabic. But as Islam spread further afield into the countries which do not understand Arabic, right? The main reason why people actually converted to Islam was because of the beautiful manners of the Muslims themselves. So the Muslims at one time were actually living, or you can say the walking Quran, right? And they really, really established themselves as real, true human beings. And that's how people are attracted to Islam. Nowadays, the Muslims are not really behaving well, not really doing things right, and in fact, trying to copy those who are not guided, and they just get lost. So that's why once Anish was mentioning, he's a friend of his who not a Muslim, but who was given the Quran. Of course, when you talk about the Quran that they were given, is always the English or the translated Quran, because they won't be able to understand the Arabic Quran. So he read the Quran and he finished it in a year, in a month, and he asked Sweb Web whether you've got another book that the Muslims follow. He says no. I suppose maybe he's quite familiar with the Jews who have two books, one book from God and another book which they formulated to appease their ignorance, their desires, and what. He says, no, this is the only book. He says, but I don't see the Muslims following this book. That's what he says. So that's why he thought they are following another book. They're not following any other book. We don't have any other book, right? But they are following their desires and their laziness in establishing the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was considered Jews' right to exploit the Gentiles. So this is how they moved away, how they differed from the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Among themselves, every powerful section of their society, including their priests and clergy, invented such heretical rules in their religion that would benefit them at the cost of others. They have all their rules and everything that actually was for them and not for others, right? As we saw in the story of Salman al-Farsi, he says that the first priest he lived with was a very corrupt man. So he says, and this priest took lots of money, had treasure loads of jewelry and everything which he took from the people, and he kept it away. So after he died, Salman al-Farsi exposed him, right? Because everybody was praising how good he was. He says, no, this man is not a good man. He's a very, very evil man. He advised people to do good, and he himself commit all kinds of sins. Right? So that's why in the Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah mentioned this part of the Jews where Allah says that you read the book of Allah, and you ask people to do good, and yet you yourself did not follow the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he created lots of other rules, heretical rules, which are against the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of such abandonments and innovations completely changed the concept of religion and its teachings, and created multiple sects among them, each of them asserting their authenticity and giving verdicts against the others. The root cause of all this problem was a desire to gain the maximum benefit over and to take advantage of others. So it's all about power, it's all about control that causes them to move away from the real teachings of the prophets. Especially Musa alayhi salam. This is the mentality that Quran describes by saying, thus they became divided due to jealous aggression among themselves. Inna rabbaka, surely your Rabb, yaqdi, he decrees bainahum, between them, yawm al-qiyamah, on the day of resurrection. Fima, in what kanu, they were, fihi, in it differing, yakhtalifun. So this is what it is. They are told, right? They are reminded that there is a day of resurrection. Some of the Jews, in fact, the modern day Jews, do not believe in the day of resurrection, just as the Quraysh didn't believe in the day of resurrection. And to believe in the day of resurrection, right, means that you will be accountable for your actions. And many doesn't want to be accountable for their actions because they want to do evil. Right? If they know of, or they believe in the day of resurrection, Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? They would not want to commit any acts of evil. They would be stopped from committing any acts of evil because they'll be questioned on their acts. But Allah is telling us that Allah will decide for them, but leave it to the day of resurrection. In Fima, in what kanu, they were, fihi, in it, being emphasized, right, in the religion, in the matter that was given to them, that came to them, which is a truth, and they still want to make, they have differences of opinions concerning the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and change it. The case is left to Allah, who will judge them on the day of resurrection. He will decide about the degree of veracity on the day of judgment, and will also assess on that day how much role did stubbornness, obstinacy, partisanship, and a desire to defeat the opponent play. So why are they doing all these things? Why are they having differences? Is it because of truly wanting to be with Allah? Or is it because of their stubbornness, their obstinacy, their racism, their tribal values and whatever? Here, the purpose to refer to the aspect of their character is twofold. On the one hand, it is to assure the Muslims that today, people who have assumed the position of arbitrators and want to decide whether the Quraysh are on the right or the Muslims have themselves been deprived of Allah's, or the Muslims, they themselves have themselves been deprived of Allah's religion because of mutual differences as well as mutual animosity and jealousy. So somehow the Quraysh at that time were calling on the Jews of Medina to decide for them or to play a mediating role, an arbitrating role. And Allah is saying, telling us that they themselves have got lots of jealousies and malice and all kinds of things, which cause them to differ from the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they are in no position to make decisions. Allah will decide on them on the day of judgment in whatever they were differing in. If such wretched people show jealousy to the Muslims and start opposing them, then this should be no matter of amazement. On the other hand, it is to warn the Quraysh that they should not accept people who are afflicted with self-inflicted blindness to show them the way. So the Quraysh are reminded this is the reality of the Jews, the Bani Israel, right? They have gone away from the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Quraysh then turn to them, right, for guidance. They will only want that just as they themselves are wandering in darkness by blowing out the light provided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a similar manner, the Quraysh too are deprived of it and wander about in the same darkness. Very important thing that becomes evident from this verse is that if there exists a difference of opinion and understanding, a precept of religion, then this is neither a matter of amazement, nor is it harmful for religion and its bearers. Not sure what it means here. A very important thing that becomes evident from this verse that if there exists a difference of opinion and understanding of precept of religion, then this is neither a matter of amazement. It's nothing to be amazed of. It's true because people are always full of ideas, and their own concept is mentioned by Hamza Yusuf also that the various different sects in Islam also arises from misinterpretation of the Quran. Now, is it harmful for religion? It's very. So I'm not sure, but it's harmful for religion. With some mistake that we saw that the differences are there, and it's not good for the religion and the bearers of the religion. But leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what we learn also, that we have to leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People of knowledge have differed with one another and can differ with one another. However, the basis of this difference is mutual rivalry and jealousy, and a desire to harm and defeat one another. And this attitude indeed raised down the whole edifice of religion. It was this type of difference which deprived the people of the book from the light of Allah. And it is this type of difference which has doomed the Muslims as well. So the differences are in the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not differences in fiqh, right? Because Allah has said that there is a mercy in the differences, because there is not an easy thing to make rulings, right, on the fiqh of Islam. So that's why, but not much. The difference is very, very minimal. ثم جعلناك على شريعة. ثم then جعلناك, we put you. Ja'ala has a meaning of put or place. In some translations it says make. So we look at the sentence to see what is the best translation here. Ja'alna is of course fi'il madi, and the ka is you, referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thumma is then, but after a lapse of some time. Thumma ja'alnaka ala shari'ah. Shari'ah is, of course, we know Shari'ah is a religious code of life. One, a Shari'ah. Min al-amr, from the affair. But tabi'ha, then follow it. Wala tattabi', and don't follow ahwa'a. So ahwa'a is nasab, because there's a thing that's to be followed, the desires. Alladhina, of those, la ya'lamun, not they know. You see, alladhina is actually supposed to be in the jar state, because ahwa'a is has not no tanwin, so signifying that it could be an off structure, and it is an off structure, but alladhina is fixed on its state. I mean, it doesn't change in any way. It doesn't become alladhini or alladhinu. It's just alladhina. It's built on that structure. La ya'lamun, ilmu is knowledge, not they know. The know, not they know. All right. ثم جعلناك على شريعة من الأمر فاتبعها ولا تتبع أهواء الذين لا يعلمون. Then we have made you follow a course in the affair, therefore follow it and do not follow the low desires of those who do not know. All right, so after some time, Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts Rasulullah on the path because they have violated their path, they have come up with lots of differences, right? They differ on many matters. After they have knowledge, they still differ. So Allah says, Allah puts Rasulullah on the Sharia of the affair. The affair, the matter is a matter of religion here. The word Sharia means a clear path and a distinct method. And these people of the book lost the straight path which Allah had informed them of, and no one remained to guide the creation at that time. Allah Almighty sent the Prophet ﷺ with a clear Sharia. Right, so there's no one there. The things have been distorted, and not much of a true religion remains. So Allah sent Rasulullah ﷺ with a clear Sharia. Thus, if today these Israelites are spreading the malicious campaign against the preaching mission of Rasulullah ﷺ, that what was the need of a new book and Sharia in their presence, in the presence of their Sharia, the reason for this is that they are not observing the mischief they have worked. Right? So we have seen that the Jews at that time, they are finding faults with the mission of Rasulullah ﷺ. They are saying that they have the book of God. There is no need for another book of God. They're saying things like, oh, our hearts are wrapped up. That means we have all the knowledge that we need. We don't need any more knowledge. And the reason that they can't, well, it means that they can't see that they are not observing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they keenly observe it, they would have known the requirements of both religion and people which necessitate the prophet's advent. So the reason why Allah puts the prophet in their place is because they are not observing the rules and the requirements of the religion. Fatabi'ha, then follow it. It means the Sharia. Ha, Sharia is female, so ha is female. Her here referring to the Sharia. Follow the Sharia, the path that Allah has put forth for us Muslims. The Quran has emphasized in the Prophet ﷺ that it is he who is following the Sharia of Allah. So however much should his opponents oppose him, he should continue to adhere to it. He should certainly not follow the religious innovations of those who are unaware of the real religion of Allah, the true religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was not, Allah forbid, emphasized on the Prophet because of any possibility that he would be inclined to the religious innovations. This was adopted to indirectly express abhorrence for them. So it is to show that Allah just hates what they have done, right? But Allah, looking at the Prophet and not looking at them because they have done horrible things, they are not following the laws of Allah, he turns to the Prophet and talks to the Prophet and advises the Prophet to follow through the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Almighty did not even like addressing such people directly. So instead of addressing them, right, as they didn't want to follow, Allah turns to Rasulullah and addresses Rasulullah in a loving way. He deemed it appropriate to address his Prophet and tell him to abstain from their religious innovations. Which shows that they are not, they have lots of changes in their religion, and Rasulullah should not follow them in any way, but follow the Sharia that is sent to him. وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ أَهْوَاءَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, and don't you follow, and don't follow the desires, ahwa, plural of desire, hawa and ahwa, plural, right? Don't follow the desires of those they have knowledge. The reality is that they do not have knowledge, they follow their desires, right? Thus, matters are defined in absolute clarity. It is either Allah's law or people's changing desires that are devoid of knowledge. Right? So they have Allah's law, but they don't have knowledge of Allah's law. They follow their desires because they are not knowledgeable. There can be no third alternative and no middle way. It's either Allah's law or people's. So it's either you follow Allah's law or you follow people's changing desires that are devoid of knowledge. Right? So Rasulullah is presented here. We put you on the Sharia, follow it. And don't ever follow the desires of those without knowledge. So it's either you follow Allah's law or you would end up following the desires of those who have no knowledge. So there can be no third alternative and no middle way. No one abandons divine law unless they choose to pursue human desires. Everything that differs with Allah's law is the expression of desire that pleases those who lack knowledge. So usually they differ because, right, of lack of knowledge and of course following their desires. Allah warns His messenger against following the desires of those who have no knowledge of the truth, as they will be of no avail to him. They only try to protect one another. وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ أَهْوَاءَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Thus, they cannot harm him in any way, as Allah will support and protect him. The word ahwa, literally desires, refers to the religious innovations. Since these innovations are invented to lend religious credence to one's desires, they are called ahwa, so that their source is unfolded. That means that they make changes, and the reason why they are making all these changes in the religion, they innovate the religion, is because to please their desires. And that is why the ahwa is placed there to make people understand and realize that whatever changes and rulings occur, other than the change of, other than the rulings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are changed because of the desires of people. The origin is not religion or intellect, it's based whims and desires. So it's not about thinking, it's not about divine message, it's just about their whims and desires. These words emphasize the Prophet ﷺ to follow the clear Sharia given to him by the Almighty after he had been cleansed from all religious innovations and deviances, and to not follow the religious innovations of those who know not, which include the Jews and the Christians. Those people who were given the book, right, they have lost the book because of their own desires, which causes them to make new rulings, right, of their religion. The idolaters of Arabia were obviously not conversant with divine scriptures or the Sharia. Right? As Allah says, they are not given the book, they have not been given the book in Surah Yasin, that they have centuries since they had people to warn them. That is why they are in a state of heedlessness. So they're not able to look at the book and know that it is divine in nature. They claim that they were the inheritors of Ibrahim's religion. However, all they inherited was the innovations which their ignorant forefathers had fabricated in the name of Ibrahim's religion. It is while supporting such innovations that they would fight with the Prophet ﷺ, alleging that his message was obliterating their ancestral religion. So their fight was because of their desire to follow this religion and their ancestral religion. Although in many parts of the Quran, Allah has mentioned and Allah has challenged them and Allah has questioned them on their beliefs. Right? They would say, oh, we follow our ancestors. We see our ancestors doing all this. No, even if your ancestors are not guided, even if they don't understand, right? Do you want to follow them? But still, they are just, their whims and fancies actually causes them to want to follow this religion. So the Jews and the Christians claim to be the bearers of the book of Allah, but as is mentioned earlier, they had created so many differences in the religion of Allah that its pristine teachings had been lost. And the Quran highlighted these real teachings, negating their religious innovations. They too got very angry. So they're not happy with the way the Quran was presented because they felt that there's too much change in the Quran, right, which is unnecessary maybe where they are concerned. But they felt that if God is one God, it's the same God, Nabi Musa and Nabi Isa, then why is he changing all those things? So Allah has explained that he perfected his religion with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was not perfect before that. They contended that this new religion had endangered their beliefs, which they laid claim to fool their masses. So this is always the case, right? Where they actually appeal to the faithfulness of the masses by saying that the religion doesn't have much of what their forefathers had. The reality was that the message of the Quran had not only revived in its true form the religion of the prophets, but also completed it. Ever since the Jews and Christians were totally in the dark with regard to the real religion. So instead of siding with the Prophet ﷺ, they decided with the Quraysh and embarked upon wiping out Islam. So whether they were in the dark, right? Yeah, they were in the dark with true religion, but they might see that it's a true religion,
but they feel threatened by the presence of the true religion. This has always been the case with all prophets, and the elites of the society has always felt threatened when the prophet comes along, because the prophet came to remove all forms of corruption in the country. Innahum, surely they, lan never, yughnu, they avail, anka, on you, min Allah, from Allah, shay'a, a thing. Wa inna zalimina, and surely the wrongdoers, yeah, ba'duhum, ba'dun is some of them, is some, ba'dun is some, awliya are friends of some, awliya ba'din, so because it is an off structure, but not awliya own, because it's part of the off structure, and ba'din is this, jarsid. Wallahu, and Allah, waliyul muttaqin, the guardian of those on God. Right, wali here has got no tanween also, because it's of waliyul muttaqin, because it's a mudah structure. Allahu waliyul muttaqin. Muttaqin are people on God. And from the word taqwa, and you have waqiyah, actually the real original word, the root word is waqiyah, which means to be always on God. Muttaqin, they are always is an ism. They are forever in a state of guarding themselves from sin, right? Whether in doing good and also in doing evil. Innahum lan yughnu anka min Allahi shay'an wa inna zalimina ba'duhum awliya'u ba'd wallahu waliyul muttaqin. Surely they shall not avail you in the list against Allah, and surely the unjust are friends of each other, and Allah is a guardian of those who guard. All right, Allah is telling Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, innahum lan yughnu. Not never, lan is never ever. They, ghani is to be and to enrich, to benefit. And use the word avail. Avail means to give you good, right? To help you out. Innahum, surely they. Inna, of course, it's an emphasis. Home is there. La yughnu anka, on you, min Allahi, from Allah, a thing. Nobody can do anything again. Nobody can stop whatever Allah has decided. Right? No matter what they say. They have said things like, oh, we will take your sins, we will cover for you the sins, and this and that. No, there's nobody who's going to do, is allowed to do such things. All right? They cannot fight against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However hard these people should try, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam should not care about them. They will be of no avail to him before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He alone, and not they who will be asked of the responsibility imposed on him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That he should obey the directives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's going to meet Allah, and Allah will ask him concerning how he manages himself. Whether these people try to stop him through their opposition or to soften him by showing sympathy, he should totally ignore them. وَإِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. And surely the wrongdoers, so Allah calls these people wrongdoers, and it's an ism, that means they are continuously in a state of wrongdoing. Some of them are friends of some. So they are friends of some, right? They know each other, they are close to each other. This refers to both the people of the book and the idolaters, because both were guilty of wronging their souls vis-a-vis the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The verse states that these wrongdoers have indeed joined hands in opposing the Quran. However, the Prophet ﷺ should not have the slightest fear of this alliance. Should not the slightest fear this alliance. So they will not, right? They are dhalimin. The disciple, they are dhalim, because they have wronged their souls, continuously state of wronging their souls, and they are friends of each other. So, but Rasulullah shouldn't be afraid of their friendship. Indeed, all they will earn from their friends is more loss, destruction, and demise. So they are not able to gain anything, because whoever is to protect them is just going to destroy them further. Wallahu waliyul muttaqin, and Allah, He is the wali, He is the friend, the guardian, the patron of those who have taqwa. For those who have taqwa are those people who are always on guard. When they do amal saleh, they are always very careful. when they do it sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when they do acts of, when they are about to, when they are confronted with disobedience to Allah, they will not allow themselves to be in that state. They persevere in themselves in controlling against those who disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu waliyul muttaqin. So the word is what wiqayah, which means to be on guard. Allah is a friend of the pious and He is omnipotent. He protects and helps His friends at all times. So if you are a person of, you are a muttaqin, as mentioned, a muttaqin means at all times in a state of taqwa, and at all times a state of being wary of their activities and actions. As for the believers, they should rest assured that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a friend, supporter, guardian, and partner of those who live in taqwa. When Allah is their helper, they should fear no one. They should continue with their ways, and Allah will ease out all their hardships. So they must remember, they must believe strongly that Allah is the patron, the one who looks after, the one who cares, the guardian, but He will not let us be in a bad state. And all our hardships will be easy on us. And none can overcome those who are helped by the might of Allah subhanahu. So if they are under the help of Allah, Allah is their friend, Allah will be there to be for them in whatever state is, then we have no worries whatsoever. هذا بصائر للناس وهدى ورحمة لقوم يوقنون. هذا, this, right? Basair, insights. Linnas, for mankind. Wahudan, and guidance. Warahmah, and a mercy. Liqawmi yuqinun, for a people they are certain. So Allah says this is referring to the Quran, are insights, right? For mankind. So people who are wise, who want to go to the Quran and learn from the Quran. These are insights in the Quran. This is a reference in the Quran to oppose which the people of the book and the idolaters has joined hands, right? So they are finding faults in the Quran. They don't believe the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They can't see the ayahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in reality, Allah is saying this is a basair. Basair means things which gives insights. You see things differently, right, for mankind. Hada refers to the Quran in a collective sense, and the word basair has been used keeping in consideration the verses of the Quran which the disbelievers were making fun of. The verses state that the Quran is a collection of verses which provides vision and insight. Right? Because Allah mentioned that the ayahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If people are making fun of it and oppose it, then they are only fooling their own selves. There's evidence from the start of this verse that as far as the ability of the Quran to give insight and vision is concerned, like the sun, it can be benefited from by everyone. So everyone can learn the Quran. Everyone can benefit from the Quran. As the sun, as mentioned, the sun is like everybody's benefiting from the sun rays. The Almighty has revealed it for this very purpose. However, only those who will avail this blessing, who open their eyes to benefit from its radiance. Unless you want to see, unless you think, you are not biased, right? Like the Jews, they are very biased. They know it's the right thing, but they don't want to even look at it. They close themselves, as they mentioned, Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. They say their hearts are wrapped up. So unless you are open, you open your eyes to the benefit and the beauty of the Quran, right? Or else you will not benefit. The Holy Quran is vision, right? As well as basair is something that is giving insights. So in the same manner as the eye of the head makes seeing objects and colors possible, the Holy Quran is the eye of the heart through which knowledge finds its way to the heart. So it's very important to be with the Quran, to be part of the Quran, and to always be reading the Quran every day, at least try 10 minutes the Quran. Read through the Quran until you finish, read through again until you finish. We're advised to finish the Quran at least twice a year. We don't want to be grouped according among those people whom Allah will say in the next world that they have hijrah from the Quran, they have migrated from the Quran, they have left the Quran. So we want to be with the Quran at all times because we are aware of the greatness of the Quran. One who ponders a while on the Quranic verses, the light man's knowledge is the light shed by Allah on the heart of whoever He wills from among His slaves. So special knowledge is bestowed on His way on the hearts of the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran will emit light to those He has chosen. Allah has chosen. It illuminates his heart and shows him the path of deliverance from the shadows of ignorance, the light of knowledge and wisdom. And you have wahudan. So this is what it is. It is knowledge, right, that shows to the path of deliverance. Deliverance means saved from the hellfire. Wahudan, the Quran is guidance towards the path of felicity and a guide to the path of deliverance. It is by following the Quranic teachings that one may leave the way of error and tread on the straight path. So the Quran, in the Quran, Allah says, Allah sends the Quran, and it guides us to become happy, right? And it guides us to protect us and save us from the hellfire. So we are happy in this world and the next world. Is by following the Quranic teachings that one may leave the way of error and tread on a straight path. So while reading the Quran, understanding the Quran, we will leave that wrong way and would move on to the straight path. وَرَحْمَةٌ لِقَوْمِ يُقِنُونَ, and a mercy. So it's a guidance and a mercy for those who have certainty. They're certain of Allah, they are certain of the Prophet, they're certain of the rules of Allah, they are certain of resurrection. Then it will become a guidance for them. Then it will be a great mercy for them. The Holy Quran is divine mercy. We start on the faithful through following its injunctions and instructions. Divine mercy, forgiveness, and bounty will be gathered to them. So while they follow the injunctions and the instructions, then the divine mercy, forgiveness, and bounty will be granted to us. Such merits and virtues belong to those who act upon Quranic verses through certainty and meditation. So those who live the Quran, those who understand the Quran, you know, such merits and virtues belong to those who act upon Quranic verses through certainty and meditation. So they have to be sure that these are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they also contemplate on these verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After delineating the general benefit, the word points to the specific benefit of the Quran. So the first general benefit was that it is a Sharia, right? The general benefit, it is sent to Rasulullah SAW to be followed. What is important that there's guidance and there is. It is guidance and mercy for those who have conviction in warnings and glad tidings sounded by it. So it will guide us, and it's a mercy from Allah because it makes things easy for us in this world and the next world. Both have different meaning. Visually, for those who have conviction, this Quran is a guidance in this world and mercy in the hereafter. So this is another opinion of what the word Huda and Rahmah is. It says Rahim or Rahmah. Huda is the guidance in this world, and then the mercy is in the next world. We follow the guidance as much as we can. At times we do falter, right? And we seek Allah's forgiveness, right? And the next world, Allah will purify us further by His mercy. To the straight path, and in the hereafter, it will unlock the doors of Allah's immeasurable mercy because we are obedient to Allah subhanahu. Describing the Quran as a means of insight emphasizes its role of providing enlightenment. The Quran provides insight, and insight makes matters clear. Moreover, the Quran itself is guidance and mercy. All these depends on certainty of faith, which admits no doubt or worry. So in order to have insights, in order to be guided and to be blessed with the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this person must have yaqeen, must have certainty of faith. And then he would not have doubts of the Quran, right? Nor anything that would causes him to not accept the teachings of the Quran. With such certainty, we know that the way as it appears before us is clear, straight, leading to a well-defined goal. So you need to have certainty, right, to move on the path of Allah. We go along this way, sure of step and without hesitation. So we go along the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are sure we're not going to fall, we're not going to falter, we're not going to slip, right? And we have no hesitation whatsoever because we know this is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Quran is our source of light and guidance. This is indeed the embodiment of Allah's grace. All right. Let's recite and record. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحُكْمَ وَالنُّبُوَّةَ وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ بَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ فَمَا اخْتَلَفُوا إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ بغيا بينهم إن ربك يقضي بينهم يوم القيامة فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون ثم جعلناك على شريعة من الأمر فاتبعها ولا تتبع أهواء الذين لا يعلمون إنهم لن يغنوا عنك من الله شيء أو وإن الظالمين بعضهم أولياء بعض والله ولي المتقين هذا بصائر للناس وهدى ورحمة لقوم يوقنون. All right, we just look at some words first before we end the class. Ijtarahu, from the word jaraha, we can tell it's jaraha. This is an ifta'ala structure, and the waw alif is represents they. So this is fi'il madi, right? They committed. Ijtarahu. Ad-dahar is the time. All right. We will not go to the next verse. We will end here. اللهم ارحمنا بالقرآن واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار واجعله لنا حجة يا رب العالمين اللهم استودعك ما علمتني فردده إلي وقت حاجاتي إليه فلا تنسينيه يا رب العالمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ربنا انفعنا بما علمتنا ربي علمنا الذي ينفعنا ربي فقهنا وفقه أهلنا وقرابات لنا في ديننا مع أهل القطر أنثى وذكر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلى الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك